One of the things I like to do with any new tool is to make a box for it, so I'm just using some OSB board here. I've put some glue on, and I'm using staples in here to nail the thing together. Oops. Goes up, and then repeat all the way around to build the box. This is my box completed. I now need a piece of wood to go in here. Now, one way to do that is to measure it, but the chance of making a mistake when you're measuring it is quite high. So if I've set the table saw between the stop here and the blade to be the width I want, but it's too big by 2 thicknesses of the wall. So if I take that and use 2 thicknesses of wood here and put a mark on there, then I've got the exact position I need to cut my board to fit without doing any measurements at all. So if we now look at a box which is being pulled a bit out of the square, it's only got a small number of staples in. You see that's a complete perfect fit inside there without any measurement. So I'll run another one of these off, and then I'm probably going to put the board on the inside, so I need to reduce the width by 2 thicknesses as well. So I've marked things by the same procedure, and now I've just got these ends to trim. This is the 2 pieces of wood I used as my mark to set the width, and then this is the piece that was cut off, and you can see there's a little bit of difference, and that's the kerf of the saw. So the saw blade has taken that area here, so that the actual width cut off is this width plus the width of the saw blade, which makes it right for fitting. So if we lay the bottom board we just cut on the table, put the box over it, and it drops down for a very good fit. You can see that the fits on all the corners and on the sides are pretty good for what is a no measurement, relatively crude setup. So we just go around the board with the PVA adhesive. It's very warm at the moment in the UK, so this PVA adhesive should work. The PVA adhesive doesn't work so well if it's cold, so you always have to bear that in mind. But at the moment we're in the middle of a heat wave in England, and everything is lovely and warm. So we continue with that and put glue on all the edges. Having got the glue on, we just do the same procedure again, which is put the lid on top. We know, because we're at least we can get inside on this one, we can press it down and we know that we're then level at the bottom, and then all we've got to do is to go around with the nailer and nail it up. This is now the other side of the box. Again, I've gone round all the sides with glue, PVA glue. So I spread that out on all the 4 sides here, and then sit that down on the bench or on the table saw here, and drop the top on, so that it's so that it sits down, or it should do. Obviously I've had this thing a bit too tight a fit. It's sticking up at the bottom. Okay, so that has now gone in there, drop that over until it's down on the bottom. Check with the finger that it's level, which it is. And then we just need to nail that into position. So just go around all the bottom section and making sure that the thing is nailed in. Way to get into it. So what we're going to do now is to cut a lid for it with the table saw, and that will then allow us to get into the inside of it. So I've set the saw so that I've got the bottom size I want from here to here, and then I'll now shove this thing through there and cut the top off of the lid. So that now is the box with two sides open. Now, because it's a tendency when you cut the thing loose for the thing to move a bit, what I normally do now is, rather than cutting the thing entirely through on the two end sections, is to cut almost through so there's still a little bit of held, like a small tab, and then cut that with the saw, with the hand saw. So essentially I create the box, but I keep the thing together until I'm ready to cut it by hand. Now is lowering the blade so that it's just below the height of the material, so it's leaving a little tab on there which will hold the ends on and stop the thing from coming loose when I don't want it to. So now, having set the blade height, then we just run through on the two other ends which haven't been cut yet. So there we have almost cut through there. So I just use a hand saw to finish off the cutting, and that means the thing's been stable while I've done all that. So this is just using a hand saw to remove that tab, and then flip the box over and remove the tab on the other side. It's really best if you can clamp it. There we go. So the lid is now detached and we have our box, and we've got to then put hardware on here, the hinges and whatnot, and these ends here have got to be smoothed down to the level that they need to be. But by doing it this way, there's no danger of the lid moving while you're cutting and causing other problems. And obviously set the hinges in here on the inside, but for this material and for what I'm doing here, I just normally set them on the outside. Use a bradawl to define a point and then screw them in. and then repeat all the way along for the number of hinges that you want to put in. I don't think there's any, it's not, we're not making fine carpentry. I'm just making a box to store my plasma cutter in to keep it dry and the dust off it, and mean all the accessories and things can all be stored with it. So it's relatively crude carpentry, but that's what I need for this particular application. It's symmetrical, so I put the other one hinge in, measured where it just by eye, measured where it was, set the combination square to that distance, and that now gives me the location for where this one needs to go, and making sure that thing is on the line between the two, top and the bottom. It's always good to get a good hole to start with here, otherwise things can not fit together at all well. But if you do that, then it goes together relatively smoothly. You can actually stick these things on with tape or whatever, but depending on the sort of quality of the job I'm doing, just something that's as simple like this is often better for this type of work. Here is just to put 2 screws in each hinge, and then make sure that the box opens and closes as it should do, and then you can go in and put in more screws, knowing that the thing's going to work. In terms of fastenings, I tend to like these little latches, which are just held in with 2 screws at the top, and then 2 screws normally at the bottom. So those are things that I'm going to use on this box. On the hinges getting the screws in, so what I'm going to use is a little device here, which is designed to be driven by a drill, so that as your drill turns, it sends, well, this thing centers it, and then as the drill turns, it pushes the screw through. But I learned from Izzy Swan that you can actually get the same sort of action by just using a hammer, and that then provides a point which is in the center of the hole, which is particularly nice. It's self-centered for you, and it's sufficiently, or generally speaking, sufficiently penetrating so that you can get a screw in. I'm having such annoyance with this thing at the moment that I think what I'll do is set the screws in. Incredibly strong, this OSB. So having got the screw in like that, then it becomes much easier. So all I've got to do then is to repeat that with the other screws on here, and then complete the job with it. This thing will bolt down underneath here. Then we have an operational box that can be closed, and that's really most of the building done. 6 cold hot rolled, and then some bits of 20s gauge bent to a little jig I've made, and they now provide the handles which will hold the case. These are going to be held by M5 machine screws. I'll just carry on and finish the job, and then drill through here. So that guarantees you've got an alignment for the machine screws, and everything then just needs finishing off and just needs the thing completing. Having more or less finished the box, the next thing to do is to put some identification on it. What I'm using here is a piece of sponge, some acrylic paint, and the stencil that was cut by John Eaton on a cutting machine. And so all we do is just dab the paint over the holes cut into the plastic sheet by the cutting machine to create, hopefully, a stencil of what's on the sheet. It's something that can go quite easily wrong, can this? Sometimes I seal the wood first with something like French polish shellac, but I haven't done that on this one, so if it goes wrong it'll be my fault as usual. We have got very good drying conditions today, so if it does work, it should dry very quickly. What does that look like? Just, oops. Yeah, so that gives a reasonable job. We'll call that good. Springwood cottage to the box. I don't know whether this sort of does any good in terms of deterrent for thieves coming, but it's sort of a branding thing, if nothing else. At least it tells me what's mine if there's any dispute. But I can't think anybody else will have made a box for their plasma cutter. But anyway, it's what I normally do. Springwood cottage in the green. Again, it's another stencil that was made by a business partner, John Eaton. God, some of this green has got a bit too solid. Nothing is ever easy. Seems to maybe it just needs water as a solvent. I don't know. I'm not really an expert on acrylic paints, but usually these stencils work out fairly well. Yeah, that's not come out too badly. So the stencils with the Jones silhouette machine work really well. They've actually done very well, and they've dried nicely in this weather. They've actually been dry a while. I've just been too busy with other jobs to get back to it. And my final coat is a varnish, a quick dry varnish, which is also child safe. I actually don't need child safe in this case, but it's my favourite varnish. It has a milky consistency when you get it out of the tin, but it goes on quite well, and it's very fast drying. So I'll just do a complete job on this. Normally what I do here is use a bottom board, which is just a series of nails like that, just to keep the thing off the floor, or off the bench here. So paint the bottom first, and then put it on the nails, and then just go around and paint the rest of it, and it will be dry very quickly. So we're coming to the end of the project. This is a dog choke chain. Normally the way it operates is you put that wire, that chain through there, and then with a ring on here, this around the dog's neck, and it acts as a choke. Not a particularly nice thing. So what I've done is I've saved a dog from trouble. I've saved 2 dogs actually. I bought 2. I've taken this, cut the 2 ends off, cut the thing in half, and then here I've just put in 2. One, I actually use wood screws. Normally I would use a machine screw. I just don't have any at the moment. So I've just used wood screws, and I'll do the same thing on the other side, and that then means that the thing can never open too far and break the hinges. So it just provides a bit of it's not really a very strong fixing going into this OSB with a 1-inch wood screw. I'll have to cut the end off that's come through. It just protrudes to a little bit on the outside, so I'll just grind that off. But in terms of functionality, and it's not really designed to require much strength, it just adds the protection for the hinges. So this then is the end of the project. The machine is quite well stored in here. There's not much extra room, which is fine. You want the box as small as possible. It's got the 2 chains on to stop it being opened too far, and then the whole thing can lift out fully assembled. So the torch, everything's connected essentially, and then when you're finished it just goes back, and you've got no reconnections to do next time you want it. I'll also put the consumables and the instructions and such in there as well, so everything is a self-contained thing. Things can't get lost and or damaged or otherwise.